Today I've got an awesome video answering your questions. We'll be going over some of the most commonly asked questions that I've received this last month or so, and hopefully these will provide some of the answers that you are looking for. Before we get started, my name is Casey Denman. I've been investing in tax liens and tax deeds for well over 2 decades, and I've been training others just like you for more than a dozen years through videos like this one, my books, and the comprehensive training platform that I operate at taxsaleacademy.com. So while I was in grade school, I was never the student that would raise their hand up in the air and ask a question. Even if I just utterly had no idea what was going on, I wouldn't ask for help. Luckily, that did change over the years, but I know some of the new tax sale investors out there have lots of questions that they aren't sure how to ask. Or better yet, they have questions that they didn't even know they had until they heard somebody else ask them. So in today's episode, I've got 10 questions that I want to discuss with you. Let's get right to it. The first question came in on YouTube from the Mucho Yardy, I think is this username. It says, how can I get OTC list? OTC, of course, stands for over the counter, which is offered when properties go to a tax sale auction, but they don't sell. First off, not every state offers true OTC or over-the-counter purchasing. In the states that do not offer OTC, the property is going to be resold at a future auction or just simply absorbed as county surplus properties to be used or sold by the county at a later date. But for the states that do offer OTC properties, those lists, they're usually available online. Simply go to the county's website. Whatever department handles tax sales, maybe the county clerk, the treasurer, the tax collector, just varies by the state. But go to their website, and usually you can find it in one of the links there. If you don't see it there, pick up the phone and give them a call or send them an email and say, listen, I'm looking for the properties that went to a tax sale auction but were unsold. It's important to note here that many states do refer to them as OTC or over-the-counter properties, but some states call them a different name, although that serves the same purpose. So make sure your verbiage is correct in that specific state so the person that reads the email or answers the phone knows what you are talking about. Now, sometimes if they're not posted, if they're not available, they might not have anything available, so keep that in mind as well. And as always, be 100% certain you do your research, as OTC properties often lead to the most issues amongst the inexperienced. I teach all about this in OTC class inside the Tax Sale Academy. Next question from Astra Lost It, YouTube. Is there any way to shorten the redemption period? No. The redemption period for tax liens and redeemable tax deeds both is going to be set by state statute. Now, there are some shorter periods in certain states for specific properties, things like dilapidated properties. So just make sure you review the laws in the state that you are investing in to see if those apply. But otherwise, that redemption period is there to protect the delinquent taxpayer, to give them time to pay off the back due taxes, and there's no way to shorten it outside of perhaps just going to them directly and buying that property. All right, next question from Aaron on Instagram. Which liens survive a tax sale? So in most states, your governmental liens are going to be the liens that survive a tax sale. So review your state's laws for these specifics, but I generally tell folks, if there's a government lien attached to that property in any way, shape, or form, state, local, city, county, federal, whatever it is, if it's attached to that property, it's going to stay with that property. This also includes federal IRS liens, which do expire after 120 days. Next question, Bala24 on YouTube. Best place for tax sale research? So this is a very tough question to provide a condensed answer to, as I've produced hundreds and hundreds of hours of trainings on the research topic alone. But some good places to start are going to be your county records, things like the tax assessor's records, the tax collector's records, building department, GIS, official records for the recorded documents, court records, code enforcement records. All those places can provide information about a piece of property. Outside of that, you have Google and you have Zillow, Realtor.com that can help provide comps for evaluation purposes, that type of thing. The entire idea behind your research is to know absolutely everything possible about the property that you're investing. If you did a good job with your research, you will never, ever make a mistake since you're evaluating everything ahead of time. everything about the property, you know everything about the condition, the value, the marketability, all that stuff is done ahead of time. So it is not a guessing game. It's not a gamble. That is what you are researching. Research needs to be approached as a very holistic type effort. You simply cannot look at one place and say, yep, based on this information alone, on this one website, I am going to invest in that property. Instead, you take that one website and combine it with 10, 15, 20 other different websites or different resources to provide you a true picture of that property, which will then allow you to decide whether you want to invest or not. And of course, secondly, when it comes to this topic, your research won't matter at all if you don't understand the laws and the processes, so make sure you start there. All right, next one, Delling's Door, it looks like is the username. It says, hey Casey, any recommendations for beginners looking to buy deeds at an online auction using their credit card to pay for it? So credit cards are most commonly accepted by third-party auction companies. So a county will contract with an auction company to handle the sale of those properties for them. Typically, those are the places where they're most commonly accepted. Now, some counties will accept credit cards directly, but your best bet is going to be start with the third-party auction companies. Now, just browse online. There's a whole bunch of them that exist out there. I should note that you will usually also end up paying a buyer's premium, which is how the auction company makes their money, plus a credit card convenience fee. So keep that in mind. Next question from YouTube. It looks like Deem is the username. What's the best county for online tax deed auctions? Well, there's simply no answer to that question. It is like asking how long a string is. My best county changes every single year and oftentimes every single month. What works best for me or any of the members inside the Tax Sale Academy won't work best for you. We all have different experience, different capital, different risk tolerances, different time allotments, different business plans, different strategies, and 1,000 other variables. If you are a doctor who makes $500,000 a year, then your plan and your strategies will and should be different than somebody fresh out of high school with $0 to their name. Can you quit your job right now and invest every single second of your life into this business? Or are you doing it as a side hustle? Both can be incredibly successful, but they take different paths and different counties will work best for each one of them. Blaze your own path, my friend. Trying to copy what others are doing without knowing their backstory, without knowing all the stuff you can't see, without knowing their strategy and the rest of the variables, is a fast track to losing a lot of money and perhaps even bankruptcy. Next question. It doesn't say where this one came from, but it says, what are your thoughts on overage investing? Yikes. So first off, I don't consider it investing. You're not investing in anything. You're providing a service instead. But I've told this story many times before. I sold a property a number of years ago, and when I sold that property, there were back due taxes on that property. So my name got lumped into the tax foreclosure file, and somehow people contacted me after it was sold, telling me that I had all this overage money and that kind of thing. Now, mind you, this was a very, very small overage. I don't remember the exact amount, but it was like $2, maybe $3,000. And I had 10 or 15 people that were essentially fighting over a very, very small percentage of my small overage. I've also had Tax Sale Academy members that have dealt with former owners with even smaller overages. I'm talking less than $1,000, where a dozen people come in and they try to fight over $1,000 overage. I actually teach strategies on how to use overages for tax sale investors and to help them deal with former owners. I am not sold on the whole, you're owed money, but I'm only going to tell you if you give me 30% type approach. Listen, it's great perhaps if you're an attorney and you have a large staff to chase after people and to defend yourself. But there are states that have outlawed it for a reason. And I don't get involved in anything where I have to have some sort of special legal forms drawn up by an attorney to try to skirt around the laws. I also don't enjoy managing large staffs and the volume required. I also don't enjoy working 50, 70 hours a week chasing overages down. I also don't like racing to the bottom to see who will work the hardest for the least amount of money. And lastly, and probably most importantly here, I don't want to see my name in a newspaper somewhere for what many attorney generals have labeled as a scam and have initiated multi-million-dollar lawsuits over. You can Google that if you don't believe me. I can assure you that the marketing for this business makes it appear much better than the reality behind it. If you go the tax sale overage route, best of luck to you. But I do not believe in that business. Our next question comes from Ray Slack. It says, what companies offer tax foreclosure certifications? Hey, Ray, so the main companies that exist out there are going to be Tax Title Services and Clear to Sell. Another one is going to be Meridian Title. There's a number of smaller companies that do exist. There's probably 2, 3, 4 out there. And some of these companies tend to come and go, whether they offer it or they don't. If you don't want to use one of the 2 or 3 main companies that I just mentioned, you can call local title companies and ask them if they're familiar with tax sale certification companies that they've operated with in the past. And there are some companies that people have never heard of that provide this service as well. So again, if you don't want to go that route, simply call some title companies and ask for some suggestions. Next question from Mike on Instagram. Is there anything somebody can do with Greenspace? So what he's referring to is a piece of property that's been labeled Greenspace that is sold at a tax sale, I'm presuming. So generally, once something is labeled as Greenspace or a conservation area, it's going to stay that way forever. It means that you cannot build on that property, and typically you can't use it for anything other than perhaps a hiking trail. This is done in exchange for the developer to be able to develop other parts of the parent parcel when they originally subdivided the land. So outside of selling it to perhaps an adjoining landowner, there isn't much value in that property. And if you did sell it to an adjoining landowner, again, all they could do is use it to maybe walk on or something like that. And you will see these pop up from time to time at tax sales, and I always avoid them. Next one from YouTube. It says, Vanilla Ice said he hired and trained an attorney to go to the county courthouse to find tax liens and deeds for sale. They would bring the leads to him. Then he would buy the ones that he liked. I actually saw this clip. Somebody tagged me in it. You can Google Vanilla Ice tax sale and it should pop up for you. So long story short, Vanilla Ice, the rapper from many, many years ago, and he's gotten into real estate. I think he's got a real estate show or something like that. He's discussing tax sales. Unfortunately, the large majority of what he said in the clip that I saw was wrong or it was careless. He says, I have an attorney that goes to the courthouse and they give me these special lists of properties that are being sold that day, and then I will buy the tax liens off that list. Now, whether I buy anything or not, I still have to pay my attorney that $5,000 retainer because he has a special way of doing it. Listen, tax sale lists are free. So whoever the attorney is absolutely ripping off Vanilla Ice big time. Secondly, they're available online in most counties, so no courthouse visit is required, although maybe that's what the attorney is telling Vanilla Ice to help justify that fee. I have no idea. He goes on to then confuse tax liens with tax deeds because he says he buys the tax lien and then he owns the house. That's, again, not how it works. I've got a lot of videos about that. Then he says he buys off of the appraised value, and he cares about that only and nothing else. Just the appraised value. I'm assuming he means the tax assessed value, perhaps, unless he's also paying that same attorney or somebody out there appraisals for every single property he researches. I have no idea what he's talking about there. Even still, there's much more to it because you can't go off value alone based on a value that was provided to a piece of property perhaps a year, 2, 3 years ago with the tax assessment. What if that property was knocked down or has liens or other issues? He also goes on to say that he buys $1 million houses for $500,000, which is rare to say the least in my 20-plus year history watching billions of dollars of tax default real estate be sold. He also says that many of the houses he owns has high weeds, cockroaches, and are basically dilapidated. He just lets them sit for years and years before he makes money. In the real world, the code enforcement officer is going to be at your doorstep and probably will take you to court over properties that you leave in such poor condition as they should be. Not to mention, most people can't just let their money sit there in a property for years and years and years as a property deteriorates. Instead, they need to roll their money over to make it work. Now, you have to understand, Vanilla Ice, he's an entertainer. He says stuff to get clicks, comments, attention. That is what he does. That's what he's done his entire life, attract attention. And I actually don't mind the guy at all. I'm sure he does well investing. He's done very well entertaining. But as far as learning the tax sale business from him, please don't waste your time. Guys, that is all I've got for you today. Obviously, each one of these topics outside of the vanilla ice question has loads and loads of other more detailed explanations throughout both my podcast and my YouTube channel. They're also, of course, explained inside the Tax Sale Playbook. Hey, if you enjoyed this podcast episode or any of the episodes here on the Tax Sale Podcast, do me a huge favor. Take just a few seconds out of your day, leave me a positive feedback message, a 5-star review, or click that thumbs up button. And as always, if we can provide any additional help, make sure you check out all the links in today's show notes, including the one to our step-by-step training academy at taxsaleacademy.com. Hey, take care, guys, and make it a successful day. We'll see you next time right here on the Tax Sale Podcast. Bye-bye.